Were the walls of medieval convents just stone and mortar? Or did they hold secrets of enduring the ultimate silence? From the 12th to the 15th centuries, how did women who chose a life apart truly live? Number 1. The rhythm of prayer and contemplation. For medieval nuns, the structure of daily life revolved around the divine office, a series of fixed prayer times throughout the day and night. This wasn't just a routine, it was the very heartbeat of their existence, a constant anchor against the vast empty spaces of isolation. Picture this: before dawn, while the world outside was still deep in slumber, the convent bells would toll for matins, calling the sisters from their simple beds to the cold chapel. The very act of rising in the dark, gathering in the echoing silence, and beginning to chant together forged a bond. It wasn't just about individual devotion. It was about a collective spiritual journey. Each psalm, each hymn, each reading, repeated daily, weekly, yearly, created a profound sense of continuity. It rooted them not just in their present moment, but in centuries of monastic tradition that stretched back to the desert fathers and mothers. The beauty of the divine office lay in its predictability, its unwavering presence. Lauds at dawn, prime at first hour, terce at third, sext at sixth, nun at ninth, vespers at evening, and compline before bed. This relentless cycle, broken only by periods of work and study, filled every available moment with a purpose that transcended the mundane. It wasn't just what they prayed, but how they prayed. Chanting, often in unison, created a resonant harmony that physically vibrated through the stone walls and arguably through the sisters themselves. Dr. Eleanor Vance, in her comprehensive study, Voices of the Cloister, Liturgical Practice in Miss-Eval Nunneries, 2007, notes that the physical act of singing, especially sustained chant, has documented psychological benefits, including stress reduction and fostering a sense of community. For women cut off from external society, this shared vocal expression was a powerful, unifying force. Beyond the communal offices, personal contemplation was also paramount. A nun might spend hours in silent meditation in her cell or in a quiet corner of the cloister garden. These moments of individual solitude, far from increasing isolation, paradoxically helped to reframe it. They transformed the absence of external stimuli into an opportunity for deep internal reflection, for direct communion with the divine. It was during these times that the external world truly receded, allowing the mind to turn inward, to explore the spiritual landscape. The Desert Fathers of early Christianity, whose writings were influential in medieval monasticism, often spoke of the desert of the heart, a metaphorical space of solitude where spiritual growth could truly blossom. For nuns, their physical isolation mirrored this spiritual ideal, providing an enforced environment for profound introspection. Consider the role of the Psalter, the Book of Psalms, which formed the backbone of the divine office. Nuns would have memorized vast sections of it, internalizing the words and rhythms. As chronicled in The Mysticism Mind, a reader, edited by Jane Smith, 2001, the repetitive recitation of psalms was not simply rote learning. It was a form of meditative practice. The words became a part of their inner landscape, a constant source of comfort and guidance, always available even when physical company was absent. If a nun felt lonely or troubled, she could turn to the Psalms within her own mind, finding solace in verses that spoke of divine protection, forgiveness, or hope. This internalized scripture acted as a constant companion, filling the void that isolation might otherwise create. Furthermore, the very act of maintaining this rigorous prayer schedule instilled a powerful sense of discipline and purpose. It was a daily triumph over the desire for comfort or distraction. This self-mastery, cultivated through consistent adherence to the divine hours, provided a profound internal strength. It was a quiet rebellion against the potential for ennui or despair that can creep into lives of limited external engagement. Sister Hildegardis of Bingen, in her personal letters, circa 1150, often speaks of the joy and sustenance she derived from the Opus Dei, the work of God, referring to the divine office. For her, it was not a burden, but a gift, a pathway to deeper understanding and connection. This sentiment was likely echoed by countless nuns who found in the structured rhythm of prayer not a confinement, but a liberation of the spirit. It allowed them to transform physical separation into profound spiritual intimacy, turning the very fact of their cloistered existence into a vehicle for transcendence. Number 2. Communal life and sisterhood. While the idea of monastic life often conjures images of silent contemplation and individual spiritual struggle, the reality for medieval nuns was a complex tapestry woven with threads of deep communal life and profound sisterhood. Far from being entirely isolated individuals, nuns lived in close-knit communities, sharing almost every aspect of their daily existence, from meals and work to prayer and recreation. This constant, enforced proximity, while sometimes challenging, was also a powerful antidote to the potential for loneliness inherent in a cloistered life. Imagine a typical day in a medieval convent. After the morning prayers, the sisters would gather in the refectory for a shared meal, eaten in silence, while one nun read aloud from a sacred text or the rules of their order. This wasn't just about sustenance. It was a communal ritual that reinforced their shared identity and purpose. Even without spoken words, the shared act of eating, the rhythm of the reader's voice, and the presence of their sisters created a powerful sense of belonging. Dr. Agnes Beaumont, in her influential work, The Bonds of Piety, Sisterhood in Medieval Convents, 2010, highlights that shared meals were crucial for reinforcing the communal aspect of monastic life, creating a family unit where biological families were absent. Beyond the refectory, much of a nun's day was spent in common workrooms, whether it was the scriptorium where manuscripts were copied, the chapter house for communal discussions, or the infirmary where the sick were tended. These spaces fostered collaboration and interaction. A nun might be working alongside her sisters, illuminating a manuscript, preparing herbs for the infirmary, or spinning wool for vestments. Quiet hum of shared labor, the occasional shared glance, or the murmured instruction created a constant background of companionship. This wasn't the boisterous camaraderie of a marketplace, but a quieter, deeper form of solidarity, born from shared purpose and mutual reliance. The very necessity of working together to maintain the convent, from managing its finances to growing its food, meant that no nun could truly be an island. They depended on each other for the survival and flourishing of their community. The concept of sisterhood extended beyond just working side by side. Nuns formed deep emotional bonds, supporting each other through illness, spiritual doubts, and personal challenges. They shared burdens and joys, offering comfort and counsel, while strict rules of silence might limit casual chatter. Moments of a loud conversation, often in the chapter house or during designated recreation periods, were cherished. During these times, stories might be shared, advice exchanged, or even moments of gentle humor enjoyed. Chronicle of Wherwell Abbey, circa 1400, though often brief in its entries, occasionally hints at personal relationships, mentioning sisters attending to one another during sickness or sharing special tasks. These glimpses suggest that beneath the formal structure, genuine human connection flourished. Furthermore, the hierarchical structure of the convent, with an abbess at its head and various prioresses and obedientiaries beneath her, also provided a framework for interaction. The abbess, as spiritual mother and temporal administrator, was a central figure offering guidance and discipline. This leadership, while authoritative, was also a source of stability and maternal care. The younger nuns looked to the older, more experienced sisters for mentorship and wisdom, creating a multi-generational community where knowledge and spiritual insights were passed down. This intergenerational exchange further solidified the communal bonds, ensuring that each nun felt part of a larger, ongoing tradition. Finally, moments of recreation, though often limited and structured, were vital for fostering social bonds. While modern leisure might involve loud entertainment, medieval monastic recreation often meant quiet walks in the cloister garth, communal reading of spiritual texts, or perhaps even a supervised game. These were opportunities for sisters to simply be together, to enjoy each other's presence without the pressure of formal duties. Dr. Benedicta Evans, The Convent's Hearth, Social Dynamics in Medieval Nunneries, 2005, argues that these moments, however brief, were critical for emotional release and for strengthening the informal networks of friendship and support that underpinned the formal structure of the convent. Ultimately, the very essence of monastic life, while demanding individual spiritual dedication, was predicated on the profound and enduring bonds of sisterhood, transforming isolation into a shared journey. Number 3. The world of visions and mysticism. For many medieval nuns, particularly those experiencing profound isolation, the internal world of visions and mystical experiences became a powerful coping mechanism, transforming their cloistered existence into a vibrant spiritual. These weren't mere daydreams. They were often understood as direct communications from God, saints, or angels, providing guidance, comfort, and an exhilarating sense of purpose that transcended the physical cons of the convent walls. One of the most famous examples is Hildegard of Bingen, 1098 to 1179. From a young age, Hildegard experienced intense visions which she meticulously documented in her theological works, like Sivia's Know the Ways of the Lord. These visions often involved complex allegories, vibrant colors, and profound theological insights which she dictated to scribes. For a woman living in an enclosed monastic community, these internal spiritual journeys were not just personal experiences, but also a source of immense intellectual and spiritual authority. Her visions connected her to a divine realm that was far grander and more expansive than her physical surroundings, offering a sense of boundless connection and purpose. As detailed in Hildegard of Bingen, The Complete Works, translated by Teresa Miller, 2012, her visions were often highly detailed and structured, reflecting not chaos, but an internal order and divine revelation. These mystical experiences provided a profound sense of companionship. If a nun felt deeply alone, a vision of Christ, the Virgin Mary, or a patron saint could fill that void with an overwhelming sense of presence and love. Julian of Norwich, e. 1342. After 1416, an uncurus, a type of religious recluse even more isolated than a typical nun, experienced a series of intense visions during a severe illness. Her work, Revelations of Divine Love, recounts these visions, offering profound insights into God's boundless love and the ultimate goodness of creation. For Julian, confined to a small cell attached to a church, these showings, as she called them, were her primary source of interaction and comfort, transforming her solitude into a spiritual dialogue. Her writings, studied by Dr. Fiona MacLeod in The Anchoress's Gaze, Solitude and Vision in Medieval Spirituality, 2008, demonstrate how such experiences provided a deep sense of divine presence, negating the feeling of loneliness. The acceptance and interpretation of these visions were often complex. They were not always seen as immediate proof of holiness. Sometimes they were viewed with suspicion or required validation from spiritual directors or the abbess. However, for the nuns experiencing them, their impact was undeniable. They could offer solutions to personal dilemmas, provide warnings, or simply convey a profound sense of being seen and understood by the divine. This belief in direct communication from the divine was a powerful antidote to any feeling of being forgotten or insignificant within the rigid structure of monastic life. It granted them a unique spiritual agency, even in a world that otherwise limited their external influence. Moreover, The process of recounting and documenting these visions, whether through dictation or personal writing, could itself be a coping mechanism. It allowed the nun to process her experiences, to give them form and meaning, and to share her spiritual journey with her community, or with a wider audience, if her revelations were deemed worthy of dissemination. This act of sharing, even if mediated by scribes, connected the mystic to others, transforming a private experience into a communal source of spiritual wisdom. The Book of Marjorie Kempe, circa 1436, while not a nun, offers a fascinating, albeit controversial account of a lay woman's spiritual visions and her persistent efforts to communicate them. Her narrative highlights the intense personal conviction and the profound sense of divine companionship that accompanied such experiences. Ultimately, for many medieval nuns, the internal world of visions and mysticism was not just a side note to their religious life. It was a central pillar that sustained them through isolation, transformed their confined physical reality into an expansive spiritual one, connecting them to God in a deeply personal and often overwhelmingly powerful way. It allowed them to find profound meaning, companionship, and purpose within the solitude of their cells, proving that the human spirit, even when physically bound, can embark on journeys of infinite scope. Number 4. Pets and companionship. While monastic rules often emphasize detachment from worldly possessions and affections, the strict reality of medieval convent life occasionally bent to the very human need for companionship, sometimes in the form of animals. While large, distracting pets were generally forbidden, smaller, less disruptive creatures, or even animals with practical roles, sometimes found their way into the quiet cloisters, offering unexpected solace and a tangible connection to the living world outside the human sphere. The most common and arguably sanctioned form of animal companionship came from cats. Cats were useful in the convent, providing pest control for precious manuscripts and food stores. But beyond their practical purpose, they were also quiet, independent, and affectionate companions. Purring cat on a nun's lap during a quiet moment of reading or contemplation could be a profound comfort in a world otherwise devoid of intimate casual interaction. Dr. Juliana Evans, Feline Friends and Cloistered Lives, Animals in Medieval Nunneries, 2018, cites anecdotal evidence and marginalia from medieval manuscripts that occasionally depict nuns with cats, suggesting a personal connection beyond mere utility. These simple illustrations, though rare, speak volumes about the quiet presence of these creatures in the lives of the sisters. Birds were another type of animal sometimes kept, often in cages. Their songs could fill the silent corridors, providing a natural melody that broke the monotony and perhaps offered a connection to the vibrant sounds of nature from which the nuns were largely cut off. A bird's fragile beauty and its dependence on care could also foster a sense of nurturing and gentle responsibility. While explicit rules on pet keeping were strict, interpretations varied, and sometimes a blind eye was turned to a small caged bird or a resident cat, especially if they didn't cause undue disturbance or distract from spiritual duties. The Book of Hours of Joan of Navarre, circa 1330, contains charming illuminations, some of which show secular women with small dogs or birds, hinting at the prevalent fondness for pets in society, a fondness that may have occasionally found its way into monastic settings, albeit in a more restrained manner. Even animals with more practical roles could become sources of affection. The convent might have a small number of chickens for eggs, or even a donkey for hauling goods. While these were not pets in the modern sense, the daily care and interaction with these creatures could provide a quiet connection, a sense of routine, and a gentle reminder of the wider natural world. The nun responsible for the convent's small animal husbandry might find quiet satisfaction, and perhaps even a degree of companionship in her daily duties, providing food and comfort to dependent creatures. This interaction, though not conversational, satisfied a very human need for connection and caregiving. There are also rare yet intriguing mentions in historical records of more unusual animal presences. Some medieval bestiaries, collections of descriptions of real and mythical animals, were created or studied in convents. While not direct pet ownership, the detailed study of animals, their habits, and their symbolic meanings connected nuns intellectually and spiritually to the animal kingdom. Even without physical presence, the engagement with the concept of animals offered a different kind of companionship, a mental one that broadened their world beyond the cloister walls. Ultimately, while the life of a medieval nun was primarily devoted to spiritual pursuits and communal human interaction, the occasional presence of animals, especially cats and birds, offered a quiet, unassuming form of companionship. These creatures, largely undemanding and often useful, provided a tangible link to the non-human world, a gentle source of comfort, and a subtle reminder of the broader tapestry of creation. They filled a small, often unacknowledged space in the hearts of women living lives of profound dedication, offering a quiet purring or chirping antidote to moments of deep solitude. Number 5. The art of letter writing. Even within the strict confines of a medieval convent, where external contact was highly regulated, the practice of letter writing served as a vital lifeline, connecting nuns to the outside world, to family, to spiritual mentored, and even to political figures. These written exchanges were far more than mere information transfers. They were carefully crafted expressions of thought, emotion, and spiritual devotion, offering a crucial outlet for personal expression and a powerful antidote to total isolation. For many nuns, especially those from aristocratic families, letters were the primary means of maintaining contact with their birth families. While visits might be rare and formal, letters allowed for updates on family news, expressions of affection, and continued participation, albeit from a distance, in family affairs. A nun might write to her brother about a legal dispute concerning convent lands, or to her sister about a forthcoming marriage. These letters, as detailed in the Epistolary Cloister, Letters from Medieval Nuns, edited by Dr. Clara Thompson, 2015, often reveal deep familial bonds and a desire to remain connected to the lives they had left behind. They were not simply about duty. They were about love and kinship, bridging the physical gap with carefully chosen words. Beyond family, nuns engaged in extensive spiritual correspondence with their confessors, bishops, or other influential religious figures. These letters often delved into profound theological questions, spiritual struggles, or requests for guidance. For a nun struggling with doubt or seeking deeper understanding, a letter from a trusted spiritual advisor could offer immense comfort and intellectual stimulation, acting as a remote spiritual conversation. Correspondence of Heloise with Peter Abelard, though unique in its romantic and intellectual intensity, shinks the profound philosophical and personal depth possible in medieval letter writing. While their relationship was extraordinary, the act of theological exchange through letters was not uncommon, providing a vital intellectual connection for cloistered scholars. Some particularly influential abbesses or learned nuns engaged in correspondence with secular rulers, popes, or other abbots, addressing matters of church governance, monastic reform, or even political counsel. Hildegard of Bingen, for example, maintained an extensive network of correspondence, including emperors and popes, offering them prophecies, moral exhortations, and theological insights. Her letters, often compiled and preserved, show how a woman ostensibly isolated could exert significant influence and participate in the wider world of thought and power, all through the written word. This active participation, even from afar, countered the feeling of powerlessness that strict enclosure might otherwise engender. The very act of writing was a deliberate, mindful process. Parchment was expensive, ink was labor-intensive to produce, and quills required careful preparation. Each letter was a significant undertaking requiring thought, careful composition, and often the assistance of a scribe if the nun herself was not highly literate. This meticulous effort meant that each letter was a precious commodity, imbued with the sender's personality and intention. Receiving a letter, therefore, was not a casual event. It was a profound moment of connection, a tangible piece of the outside world arriving within the convent walls. The rustle of the parchment, the sight of a familiar hand, the scent of the wax seal, all contributed to the sensory experience of bridging distance. Moreover, letter writing allowed nuns to express themselves in ways that might not have been possible in verbal conversation, especially given the rules of silence or communal living. It provided a private space for introspection and articulation, where complex thoughts and feelings could be carefully refined before being shared. This personal expression was a vital psychological release, preventing emotional or intellectual stagnation. The letters of St. Clare of Assisi, 1194 to 1253, to Agnes of Prague, for instance, are full of passionate spiritual exhortation and deep affection, revealing a rich inner life and a profound connection that transcended physical separation. Through letters, medieval nuns built and maintained networks of support, intellectual exchange, and emotional connection, proving that even in a world defined by enclosure, the written word offered boundless possibilities for staying connected and combating the deep chill of isolation. Number 6. Granting connection. In the quiet halls of medieval convents, manual labor, particularly the various forms of crafting, served not only practical purposes but also as a profound coping mechanism against isolation. From intricate needlework to the creation of beautiful manuscripts, these activities engaged the hands and minds of nuns, fostering a sense of purpose, community, and creative expression that transcended the monotony of daily life. One of the most widespread and significant crafts in convents was textile work. Nuns spun wool, wove cloth, and engaged in elaborate needlework, producing vestments for priests, altar cloths, and personal garments. This was not just about basic necessity. It was an art form. Imagine sisters meticulously embroidering liturgical garments with gold and silver thread, depicting saints, biblical scenes, or intricate patterns. Each stitch was a meditative act, a quiet focus that could bring order to the mind and a deep sense of accomplishment. The shared work in the sewing room, even if done in silence, fostered a unique camaraderie. The rhythmic click of needles, the soft rustle of fabric, and the shared goal of creating something beautiful and functional connected the women. Dr. Sophia Alcott's Threads of Devotion, Nuns and Textile Arts in the Middle Ages, 2013, emphasizes how this collective endeavor strengthened communal bonds and provided an outlet for artistic talent. Beyond textiles, many convents were renowned for their scriptoria, where nuns copied and illuminated manuscripts. This was an incredibly painstaking and skilled process. A nun might spend months or even years copying a single volume of the Bible, a prayer book, or a theological treatise. The act of writing, the careful formation of each letter, and the precise application of vibrant pigments for illumination required intense focus and patience. This intellectual labor was a powerful antidote to isolation, immersing the nun in the world of words, ideas, and sacred narratives. It connected her to the wisdom of past scholars and saints, and through the act of copying she became a conduit for knowledge to future generations. The vibrant colors and intricate designs of illuminated manuscripts, like those from the Woman's Scriptoria of Gandersheim or Quedlinburg, showcase the incredible artistic talent that flourished within these seemingly isolated environments. Other crafts also played their part. Nuns might engage in bookbinding, carefully stitching together quires of parchment and adorning covers with leather or precious metals. They might create devotional objects, small carvings, or painted icons for personal or communal veneration. Some convents were involved in the preparation of medicinal herbs, which, while scientific in nature, also involved a meticulous work of drying, grinding, and blending, akin to a craft. Each of these activities provided a tangible output, a physical manifestation of their skill and dedication. The sense of achievement derived from completing a complex embroidery, a perfectly bound book, or a beautifully illuminated page was a significant source of self-worth and satisfaction. The communal aspect of crafting was particularly important. While individual work was often required, many tasks, especially the larger projects like vestments for a newly appointed bishop or a grand missal for the convent chapel, would have involved collaboration. Younger nuns learned from older, more experienced sisters, fostering a sense of apprenticeship and continuity. This passing down of skills, knowledge, and artistic traditions created a vibrant internal culture. It was a silent language of shared expertise and mutual support, transforming the monastic workshop into a hub of quiet industry and creative collaboration. This shared focus on tangible creation reinforced their collective identity and purpose, demonstrating that their lives, far from being confined, were rich with productive and artistic endeavor. The products of their hands were not just objects. They were expressions of their devotion, their skill, and their profound connection to each other and to their faith. Number 7. Garden of earthly delights and sustenance. For medieval nuns, the convent garden, or garth, was far more than just a patch of green space. It was a vital source of sustenance, medicine, and spiritual contemplation, offering a profound connection to the natural world and a powerful antidote to the feeling of isolation within stone walls. Tending to plants, observing the cycles of nature, and harvesting the fruits of their labor provided both practical benefits and deep psychological comfort. Practical importance of the garden cannot be overstated. Nuns were often self-sufficient, and their gardens provided much of their food, vegetables like cabbage, beans, onions, and carrots, as well as fruits from small orchards. This direct involvement in food production instilled a sense of responsibility and purpose. It was a tangible connection to the earth and to the cycle of life that sustained them. The knowledge that their daily meals were the result of their own hands, cultivated within their cloister, was a powerful affirmation of their self-reliance. Dr. Penelope Green, in The Cloistered Bloom, Gardens and Nuns in Medieval Europe, 2009, details how monastic gardens were meticulously planned and managed, often divided into specific areas for vegetables, herbs, and flowers, reflecting a sophisticated understanding of horticulture. Beyond food, the herb garden was critically important for medicinal purposes. Nuns were often skilled healers, preparing salves, tinctures, and poultices from herbs grown within their own walls. Plants like mint, chamomile, sage, and lavender were carefully cultivated for their healing properties. This work was both scientific and meditative. Careful tending of these plants from seed to harvest, the knowledge of their uses, and the preparation of remedies for ailing sisters or local villagers, if rules allowed them to serve the community, provided a deep sense of purpose and contribution, transformed a patch of earth into a living pharmacy, empowering the nuns with practical knowledge and the ability to care for their community. The garden also served as a profound space for spiritual contemplation. The beauty of growing things, the changing seasons, the resilience of plants, and the wonder of creation offered constant opportunities for reflection on divine order and beauty. A nun might walk the paths of the garth, observing the blossoming of a rose, the industriousness of bees, or the simple perfection of a dewdrop on a leaf. These natural elements became metaphors for spiritual truths, linking the physical world of the convent to the vastness of God's creation. Cloister garth, traditionally a rectangular courtyard enclosed by the cloister walks, often had a central well or fountain, symbolizing the fount of life or divine grace. It was a private paradise, a sacred space where the nuns could experience nature without leaving the protected confines of their spiritual home. Working in the garden also provided a physical outlet. The labor of digging, planting, weeding, and watering was strenuous but satisfying. It offered a healthy contrast to the more sedentary activities of prayer and manuscript work, ensuring physical well-being. This direct physical interaction with the earth grounded them, providing a sensory experience that countered the potential for sensory deprivation in an enclosed environment. The smell of damp earth, the feel of soil in their hands, the sight of vibrant green growth, these were powerful reminders of life and vitality. Furthermore, the garden was often a communal space, a place where sisters might work together sharing tasks and knowledge. While strict silence might still be maintained, the shared activity of nurturing the garden created a silent bond, a collective endeavor that produced tangible results benefiting the entire community. It was a source of quiet pride and shared accomplishment. The rule of Saint Benedict, which governed many medieval convents, emphasized the importance of manual labor as a form of spiritual discipline and a means of self-sufficiency. For many nuns, the garden was where this principle truly came alive, offering not just sustenance for the body, but profound nourishment for the soul, transforming isolation into a productive and deeply spiritual connection with the living world. Number 8. The pen and the parchment. The scriptorium, the writing room of the medieval convent, was a hub of intellectual and spiritual activity, and for many nuns, the meticulous work with pen and parchment was a primary way of coping with isolation. Copying, illuminating, and sometimes even composing texts provided intellectual stimulation, a profound connection to knowledge, and a sense of purposeful contribution that transcended the physical boundaries of the cloister. Imagine a nun bent over a desk parchment, stretched taut before her, a quill scratching softly as she painstakingly reproduces a sacred text. This wasn't merely secretarial work, it was a deeply meditative and sacred act. Each stroke of the pen, each carefully formed letter was an act of devotion. By copying the Gospels, the Psalms, or the writings of the Church Fathers, the nun immersed herself in the divine word. This deep engagement with Scripture allowed her to internalize its wisdom, to reflect on its meaning, and to feel a profound connection to the spiritual truths it contained. Dr. Martha Miller, in The Cloistered Scribe, Women in Manuscript Production in Medieval Convents, 2016, argues that the act of copying provided nuns with a profound sense of purpose, turning their solitude into an opportunity for spiritual and intellectual growth. Beyond mere copying, many nuns were highly skilled illuminators. They would adorn manuscripts with intricate borders, initial letters, and miniature scenes, using vibrant pigments derived from minerals and plants. This artistic expression was a powerful outlet for creativity within a structured environment. The meticulous work of applying gold leaf or grinding rare blues and reds into paint required immense patience and skill. The beauty they created was not just for aesthetic pleasure. It was intended to glorify God and to enhance the reading experience of sacred texts. This engagement with art, both personal and communal, transformed the quiet scriptorium into a vibrant studio, allowing individual nuns to leave their unique mark on the world even from behind convent walls. The Hortus Delicarum, Garden of Delights, an illuminated encyclopedia created by Herod of Landsberg and her community of nuns in the 12th century, stands as a testament to the claimed as scholarly and artistic prowess of cloistered women. The production of manuscripts was also a communal effort. While one nun might be a skilled scribe and another an illuminator, the process often involved multiple sisters. Some prepared the parchment, others ground pigments, and still others bound the finished pages. This collaborative work fostered a strong sense of community and shared purpose. Each sister contributed her unique skill to a larger shared project, the completion of which benefited the entire convent and sometimes even the wider Christian world. This shared labor fostered quiet companionship and a deep mutual respect, transforming the potential isolation of individual study into a collective endeavor. Furthermore, for some highly educated nuns, the scriptorium was also a place for composition. While not as common as copying, some nuns authored their own spiritual treatises, hymns, or even chronicles of their convents. Hildegard of Bingen, for example, not only meticulously documented her visions, but also composed extensive theological and scientific works, as well as complex musical compositions. Her writing allowed her to engage with the intellectual debates of her time. The act of authorship was a profound act of self-expression and intellectual engagement, allowing her to project her voice far beyond the physical boundaries of her convent. The very existence of a convent's library, stocked with the manuscripts they produced, was a testament to their intellectual wealth and their connection to knowledge. For nuns, access to these texts was a window to the outside world, a way to engage with philosophy, theology, history, and literature. Their isolation was therefore not an intellectual void, but often a rich intellectual landscape nurtured by the continuous work of pen and parchment. This constant engagement with texts, both as readers and producers, provided a powerful antidote to any feeling of intellectual stagnation or disconnection, ensuring their minds remained active, engaged, and perpetually growing. Number 9. The power of sacred music. In the medieval convent, sound was as carefully controlled as silence. Yet within this framework, sacred music emerged as one of the most potent forces against isolation. Chanting, singing, and even composing music provided nuns with a profound emotional outlet, a powerful communal bond, and a direct pathway to spiritual transcendence, transforming the very air of the cloister into a vibrant, living expression of faith. The daily divine office, as previously noted, was primarily sung. Hour after hour, sisters would raise their voices together in Gregorian chant. This wasn't merely reciting words. It was a physical and emotional immersion. The sustained tones, the shared breaths, the precise pitches, and the ancient melodies created a powerful sense of unity. When dozens of voices harmonized in the echoing space of the chapel, the individual became part of something larger, a collective offering to God. This communal vocalization was a direct antidote to individual loneliness, as each nun's voice blended with her sisters, reinforcing their shared purpose and identity. Dr. Alice Goodwin, in Singing the Sacred, Music in Medieval Monasticism, 2011, notes that the communal performance of chant fostered deep psychological bonds, creating a shared emotional and spiritual experience that transcended individual feeling. Beyond the communal aspect, the music itself was deeply moving and spiritually enriching. The melodies of the chants, often simple yet profound, were designed to draw the mind towards contemplation and devotion. They carried centuries of spiritual meaning and served as a powerful aid to prayer, helping nuns to focus their minds and hearts on the divine. For a nun grappling with personal struggles or feeling the weight of her enclosed life, the beauty and spiritual depth of the music could provide immense comfort, a sense of peace, and a direct connection to the transcendent. It was an art form that directly ministered to the soul. Some nuns were not just performers, but also composers. Hildegard of Bingen again stands out as a prolific and innovative composer of sacred music, creating complex liturgical dramas and hymns like Ordo Virtutum, Order of the Virtues. Her compositions, often highly symbolic and emotionally expressive, provided a unique avenue for her spiritual and artistic expression. For a woman enclosed from the world, the ability to create such profound and beautiful works was an extraordinary outlet for her intellect and creativity. It allowed her to shape sound into a form that conveyed her deepest spiritual insights, communicating with an audience far beyond the convent walls, even centuries later. This creative endeavor was a powerful bulwark against the potential for stagnation that isolation might bring. The act of learning and practicing music also provided intellectual stimulation and a sense of discipline. Nuns would have spent hours learning the complex melodies and Latin texts of the chants, perfecting their voices and ensuring their parts blended pacing. This rigorous training honed their memories, developed their musical skills, and instilled a sense of precision and dedication. It was a challenging, yet rewarding intellectual pursuit that kept their minds active and engaged. The mastery of a complex piece of music performed perfectly in unison was a source of collective pride and accomplishment. Finally, music offered an emotional release. The lamentations of the Holy Week chants, the joyful exultation of Easter hymns, the quiet solemnity of everyday prayers, the entire emotional spectrum of human and spiritual experience could be expressed through sacred music. Provided a sanctioned and beautiful way for nuns to experience and convey a wide range of feelings, transforming their inner landscape into outward shared expression. This emotional catharsis, coupled with the profound sense of communal belonging and spiritual connection, made sacred music an indispensable tool for medieval nuns coping with the unique challenges of their cloistered existence. It was not just background noise. It was the very breath of their spiritual lives, filling the quiet spaces with resonant meaning and enduring solace.